Welcome to Ecotopia U Media. I'm your host, Melissa McGinnis. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom Wright. How are you today, Tom?
Fine, and yourself?
Very good, thank you. Today we're going to be discussing glyphosate. And I think that we should start off listening to Dr. Seneth from MIT give us some of her thoughts on glyphosate.
Okay.
I'm Stephanie Seneth. I'm from MIT, CSAIL, senior research scientist there, and I'm going to be talking about the role of aluminum and glyphosate, synergistic role in autism. So you all know this frightening trend. This is autism diagnoses by the CDC. It's going up and up and up. Where is it going in the future? I predict by 2025, half the kids born will be diagnosed with autism. That's not going to be an easy situation for the country to face and for the country's future.
So Dr. Seneth goes on to really outline that there's a direct link between autism and glyphosate, and the trend is half the children born are going to be autistic.
This is amazing. She's been doing a lot of work on various pathways to modern diseases, and she wrote an article in Toxicology, Interdisciplinary Toxicology magazine in 2013. And I'm just going to read from the abstract. So this is a long paper, and this is just the abstract. So this is talking about yet another problem with glyphosate, which is celiac disease. Okay, and celiac, and more generally gluten intolerance, is a growing problem worldwide, but especially in North America and Europe, where an estimated 5% of the population now suffers from it. Symptoms include nausea, diarrhea, skin rashes, microcritic anemia, and depression. It is a multifactorial disease associated with numerous nutritional deficiency, and as well as reproductive issues and increased risk to thyroid disease, kidney failure, and cancer. Here we propose that glyphosate, the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup, is the most important causal factor in this epidemic. Fish exposed to glyphosate develop digestive problems that are reminiscent of celiac disease. Celiac disease is associated with imbalances of a gut bacteria that can be fully explained by the known effects of glyphosate on gut bacteria. Characteristics of celiac disease point to the impairment of many enzymes, which are involved with the detoxification of environmental toxins, activating vitamin D3, catabolizing vitamin A, and maintaining bile acid production and sulfate supplies in the gut. Glyphosate is known to inhibit the production. Deficiencies in iron, cobalt, all the metals rare metals that we can have in our diet are attributed to glyphosate's strong ability to chelate these elements. And she goes on to say, we conclude with a plea to governments to reconsider policies regarding the safety of glyphosate residues in food. And this paper is chart after chart explaining basically the incidences of certain diseases and the use of glyphosate and the residue found on various crops from glyphosate. And nothing's contradicting what they proposed.
Right.
You know.
Well, I think that's what's so frightening is that this is just pure research. There's no contradiction.
These aren't people with an agenda.
Right.
Yeah.
So glyphosate has been increasingly used here in North America because of our GMO crops.
Well, Roundup Ready crops are genetically engineered. Soy, corn, and cotton are the big three. And of course, in terms of food, we don't consume that much cotton. Cottonseed oil would be the main way you would consume cotton if you did. But corn and soy are, of course, very popular foods, and they're used as extenders and for meat substitutes. So even vegetarians should worry about this issue. That's
what's so frightening is that there's soy and corn in almost all of our products on the shelf. Processed foods. Yeah. And the public is probably not aware, one, that they're consuming even soy or corn because it's hidden in processed foods, but two, that those are laden with this chemical glyphosate.
Yep. It's amazing too. In this report, again, in Interdisciplinary Toxicology, 2013 volume 6, they have the complete list from the FDA, the complete list of glyphosate tolerances and residues in food crops, and the parts per million, the range is huge. So it's like it goes from 0.1 parts per million, okay, to 400 parts per million, which would be 4,000 times as much. And this is true with animal feed and alfalfa is where the highest residue is. And so they go on to study, and in other studies, does glyphosate affect animals too? And of course the answer is yes.
Of course, and our companion animals as well. And I think, we'll have to pick this up on our next chapter discussing glyphosate. But what's the reality of that being run off these farms into our drinking water?
Well, I mean, that just helps spread it.
I'm saying, but is that a reality? Is that happening? Because here she mentions that urine testing shows Americans have 10 times the amount of glyphosate. And it also says that we have way more times the allowable limits in European drinking water. So I'm assuming that it's making its way into our drinking water as well.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, it is interesting in the parts per billion, which of course, according to the FDA, is safe in that kind of dilution.
So in order to try to avoid glyphosate as much as possible, eat organic, obviously, and try to stay away from processed foods.
And don't use Roundup at home. I mean, it's a poison, and that dates me. But I remember when not Roundup per se came out, but when the first commercial herbicides came out in the 70s, the skull and crossbones was on every package.
Right.
And now they've subtly removed it, and they have a little danger thing, which is of course that you shouldn't ingest the stuff, but they acting as if you shouldn't use gloves and masks. But if you're going to use stuff like this, you should create barriers.
Well, certainly don't use it at home, but I'd say abide by some of those tips. Check back to Ecotopia U Media for more information. We'll be definitely covering glyphosate again and again and again. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.